Tyler Knaeble in the house.
How we doing, baby? I'm excited to be on.
You've been a long time coming, man.
Yes, I've probably watched more episodes than maybe anybody in the maybe not anybody in the audience has. This show's been going a lot longer than I've been a producer of it. But past year maybe I've definitely seen every episode. So
oh no, yeah, you've put in the hours, more hours than almost anybody. But there are people that have been watching since we started the YouTube channel, listening to the podcast that even predates the streaming show on YouTube. People that have been listening since 2016. In fact, if you are in the audience and you have been listening to the show prior to that, if you were listening in 2014, 2015, the very, very early days, email me, podfather@rotounderworld.com. I'll send you something. I don't know what it is yet. It'll be something. I promise it'll be something. If it at the very least, it'll be like some fast draft credits. At the very least, could be something even better. But on a case-by-case basis, I'll make that decision. And then you are the head of all producers and my own personal producer for this show and other shows like the Sonic Truth and the Top 10 Takeaways, and I'm very blessed to have you. You're a total stud. In the chat, we also have Alex McQuarter, who is the YouTube coordinator with you. So you and Alex work together to help coordinate the YouTube content. We had a big meeting, planning all the shows, kicking around some ideas for, hey, how do we bring this show back? We're going to be launching a new show called Stat Masters with Evan Ringler, our new analytics genius. I was gonna try to say something a little less overtly smart, right? But he is that smart, right? He's not just a clever guy. I think he's a full-blown genius. So yeah, he's going to be doing a show, giving his stats of the week, and that's going to be on Player Profiler News, and that's going to have its own podcast feed, and we're just always planning new shows. Hey, how can we put this person in a position to create content that people will like, that is different? There's all kinds of ways you can be unique in the industry. Sometimes people reach out to me, even on Twitter. I've had people DM me, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time and just talk to you about, how can I make a difference in the industry? How can I get a toehold? That's all people are really looking for. Just give me a toehold and I'll make the climb. But how do I find that first toehold? That's really the big question. So I'm real excited to talk to you today. So let's just jump right in here. You are the host of the Best Ball BBQ show on YouTube, yes. Right?
Yes, love the Best Ball BBQ. That's my own personal channel. It's pretty much a best ball show. Obviously, it's in the name. A lot of underdog drafting that goes on there. We started on the big board season. I think my first stream was in March, or maybe it was early, maybe mid to early February. But really wanted to grow that as much as I could. Did a ton of consecutive streams. I think our highest streak we got to was 80. I wanted to get to 100. There was just one day the streak died. So we got to 80, which was
80
cool.
days of streaming?
80 days, consecutive stream, consecutive draft.
Whoa. And then you also did a 24-hour streamathon, yes. Right?
Did the 24-hour stream. So I started the channel. So I said if I get to 750 subs, I would do a 24-hour live stream. I started the channel. I started doing the fantasy stuff I think I had 390 subs, because the channel used to be my college podcast that I did, and I already had subs from that, but I was like, I'm not in college anymore. No one wants to hear me talk about whatever I was talking about on there with a whole bunch of just roommates. We get together after on a Saturday night after we have been drinking, just let's do a podcast type of thing. So
yeah,
you
guys are doing live games of Monopoly or something.
Not Monopoly. We just talk about hey,
I know.
What do
I know
it's not
Monopoly. I know. I get it.
But yeah, so that
they
was
still
really
play
cool.
Beer Pong.
Oh,
college?
So yeah, beer pong, but we just put water in it, but then you just drink a sip of your beer, whatever you're drinking, because people, there's a lot of different drinks people like to have these days. So it's not just beer anymore.
Right, that was a big one when I was in college. Back in my day, I said that to my daughter today. I said, back in my day. And she's like, Dad, you sound so old. And I was like, because I am. But yeah, beer pong was huge. That was a big one.
Beer pong's still in. It's still in.
I'm still glad. I can't believe it. That's what I always say to college kids. I'm like, hey, beer pong's still a thing? It's like, yeah. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It works. I had a feeling. Because this was early days of beer pong. I was there for the transition when people actually had paddles and balls. And so you would play ping pong with a couple cups, like cups in the corner. And then you're trying to use the actual paddle to hit the ball in the cup. That's what it used to be.
I didn't know that.
That's what it used to be. And then someone had the brilliant idea of like, can we just ditch these paddles? This is so inefficient. We just want to drink. Let's form a diamond shape and let's just throw these things in and let's speed this thing up. Come on, rapid fire. Let's go. So I was there for that transition and I was like, man, I think this is going to take off. I think this is going to be a thing that really has legs. 25 years later, still a thing.
Awesome. You love to see it. Beard Eye is the one that's really in right now. People love Beard Eye. Okay. Talk about that. So Beard Eye, you get like it's basically a slab of wood kind of thing. You can play it on different tables, but basically it's like beer pong is 2 teams of 2. You have a cup like a solo cup just with water in it on each side of the table. So basically like each corner of the table, I should say. So each corner has a cup. And you have this dice, like just one die, and you like throw it in the air. And you have to hit it on the other half of the table. And if it hits the other half of the table and it falls off, you have to catch it with one hand. It's a weird thing where like it hits the other side of the table and it falls on the ground, then that's a point. Or if you get it in the cup, that's 3 points. So it's a bunch of other stuff. So it's if somebody gets it in the cup, like it's like the most electric thing you've ever seen at like a tailgate or like, a darty, as we used to call it in where I went to school. So yeah, because it kind of deflects up in the air and then it goes in. It's amazing. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it's Beard Eye. It's great. Yeah, but I'm telling you, this beer pong. I mean, however many beer pong matches have been played, millions and 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 millions. And I remember cornhole. I remember when cornhole got started. That's still is that a thing in college, or is that more of like a drinking dad's thing? Oh, we call it bags, but yeah, bags, right? Yeah, bags, sure, 100% bags. Still in. Yeah, 100% still in. So that's because we didn't play in college, so we did cornhole. It might have been a Southern thing at the time, back in my day. But then every barbecue over the last 20 years, every tailgate, right? Now people have like multiple sets of bags and boards and all these things. It's great. It's great. And you also host on this channel, so you have your own channel. So everyone should subscribe to the Best Ball Barbecue. But then, as an inspiration, we now have these tailgates to prepare people for Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football. So which of the tailgates are you hosting? I'm hosting the Monday night tailgate with John McGlynn. So we did that last night to preview Falcons Eagles. That was a blast. Basically, we kind of recap a little bit of what happened, the Sunday prior. We'll talk about, just some of the big storylines there. We'll break down the game. We'll give we each give 2 player prop picks for that upcoming game. So we have like our little Monday night tailgate parlay. Didn't hit last night, unfortunately, but me and John also made a Dynasty trade. We're in the Trade Gods League together, and he sent me a trade on Sunday, so we broke that down too, which was awesome. What was the trade? Oh, the trade was he sent me out of the clouds Deontay Johnson and Gabe Davis for Quentin Johnston. So I traded away Quentin Johnson and got Deontay Johnson and Gabe Davis. He somehow found a way to talk himself into Quentin Johnston out of nowhere. He did. I mean, I'm a pretty win now team in that league, so I was like, I'll take Deontay, and then the quarterback change happens the day after, which is great. So it was just even better for me because I did it. I was like, I'll take a chance on Deontay. To Dalton, I think it's better than it was for Young. Okay, so this again,
is the show. It makes sense because you're a very young guy and I'm old. And so it just makes sense that we would have a lot of back in my day moments. So back in my prime of playing fantasy football, Andy Dalton was a top 5 fantasy quarterback one year. It was like 2013. You can check me on that. Someone in the chat can check me on that. It was like 2013-ish with A.J. Green. And he had guys like Chris Henry. He had, it was so many. It was great. It was great. It was great. I don't think he overlapped with T.J. Hushmanzada. I think that was more of a Carson Palmer connection. But there's been some great weapons, some great wide receiver weapons going back through time in Cincinnati. And now in Carolina, there are weapons, right? Deontay Johnson gets open. Adam Thielen can still play football. So this is interesting. This is exciting. Clearly, they had an incompetent quarterback that was not capable at all of matriculating the ball down the field, of sustaining drives. Everything changes now. Deontay Johnson is a screaming buy because of this. Screaming. You got him. And then, but the announcement happened just after the trade went down.
Just after. It was the day after, yeah.
Poor John. John, if you're listening, I'm sorry, man. That's bad timing. I know you're not on the show, but I'll speak for you, John. I'm sure you would not have done the deal had you known. It seems far-fetched that they would just give up on the number 1 overall pick so quickly. I mean, think about how long the Rams stuck with Jared Goff. You know, hey, Jared Goff's never going to be a thing. Jared Goff, stop trying to make Jared Goff a thing. Eventually, they made him a thing. They just stuck with him. He was Bryce Young level bad for at least a year, and then they stuck with him, and then he finally turned it around. So good for them. Good for Jared Goff. Now he's outperforming Matthew Stafford against all odds. You love to see it. So then last night, you're a Falcons fan. You're watching this game. I was thinking about you last night. What a game.
Yeah, we were on the call together while the game was on too, and I was going crazy on the call.
And then after that, I was watching Barkley just dump passes on the ground, and I was like, this is how you win. The Falcons are going to win this thing. Darnell Mooney squeezing it on the sideline. I was like, look at this.
It was unbelievable, man. I was like, because as a Falcons fan, I was texting my group chat, and I was like, even after Drake London catches the go-ahead touchdown with 35, 38 seconds left, I'm saying to my group chat, I'm like, I've seen this story before as a Falcons fan. Like, this is the game they lose. They lose these games where it's like you think they won, it's wrapped up, and then Jalen Hurts, and then he has a nice 15-yard completion to Goddard, the first play of the drive, that last drive, and it's like they're on the 40. They got Jake Elliott. They really only need to get to the 40-yard line to have a real chance at kicking a field goal, and then Jesse Bates, best safety in the league, comes out of nowhere, just absolute demon. Ball hawking interception. So my girlfriend was sleeping in the room because she's a nurse. She had to wake up the next morning. And I'm just doing the silent scream. You know what I mean? Where it's the silent scream, doing this and all that, alone in the dark in my apartment. So it was a good moment to share with myself. We needed that as a fan base. We needed that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about Darnell Mooney. I just posted my fab guidance for this week. And it's one of those things where I'm always surprised when players I know are good, that are on good teams, that start, are on the waiver wire, and they're just sort of forgotten about because it's like, oh, we're on to whoever is the next man up in Los Angeles. And I'm like, well, wait a second, everybody. Hold on. Before you start putting bids in on Rams, look at the rostership of Darnell Mooney. He's got to be number 1. You got to make sure you're looking on the wide receiver board just in case. Even if you don't need receiver, sometimes you don't realize, oh, if I had known Mooney was available, I would have picked him up. I didn't even realize. I thought it was going to be like Demarcus Robinson and Jalen Naylor, so I didn't even bother. I didn't know Mooney was out there against the Chiefs. What a smash. Let's go. I'm gonna pick him up and stream him.
Yeah, Mooney's awesome, man. Mooney's one of my most drafted players this offseason. And like I didn't have that much of like Falcons, but I had so much Mooney just where he was going. He was always a great buy. It was great to see that game from him last night. Now have it be Ray McLeod, the leading receiver again, like it was in week 1.
He's a good player. You love to see it, and you like to see Kirk Cousins playing well. Like he answered the bell. So many people jumping out one game. Kirk Cousins done. Kirk Cousins dust. It's like, no. Similar injury to Aaron Rodgers, similar injury to a bunch of even quarterbacks that have suffered this injury, and it takes time, but they will recover. It's a soft tissue injury. It needs to be strengthened. It needs to be worked out. They're going to have one game where he doesn't quite trust it, and then he gets through the game, and he realizes it's okay. I did some planting. I did some pushing off. I can do more next time, and then he does more next time. Next thing you know, he starts looking like Kirk Cousins again. It's just the process. It's just the rehabilitation process. Not a lot to see here with Kirk Cousins. He's still Kirk Cousins. Great. If you somehow got Kirk Cousins in that 1 week window in like a super flex league, congratulations. You were able to, find your chi and put aside what was a horrific looking week and be like, this is professional football. This is an injury rehabilitation. Give him a week to figure this out. And he did. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's exactly what happened too. So like in week 1, Kirk Cousins, he only took 2 snaps under center the entire game. Only 2. One of them was on a 4th down jet sweep to Bijan. The other one was on a spiked ball. The rest of the snaps, 80% they were in pistol and shotgun. They ran the ball 80% of the time out of pistol. They ran the ball 0 times out of shotgun. So like when you do that, and it's like that was my big fear where it's like, okay, like they're playing predictable football here. Like if you see
anyone that has the tape is going to know what's coming.
Exactly. But then last night, it was a ton of under center stuff. So I think it's kind of what you said, where like, week 1 is like, okay, just get out there, get a feel for stuff. And then week 2, they gave him a lot more under center. And the running game was a lot better for it. The entire offense was better for it. So more of that going forward is what I'm excited to see.
So Tyler is a great producer, and he, is always reminding me of things I need to be doing as a best practice with the show. One of them is to remind the audience to like and subscribe to the show. If you appreciate this free content with very few commercials, then you should like and subscribe to it. And that really helps us get the show to more people. And then if you listen closely, you can hear that the real show is about to start. The show. So it was a good little pre-show, little Falcons talk. Well, that's the wrong jersey. That's the wrong 23. No, I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree. He's not in the same class as Jordan. No LeBron. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program. My personal producer who keeps me in line, keeps the show running on time every single week is now the head producer at playerprofiler.com, the host of the Best Ball BBQ show, the host of the Player Profiler Tailgate. Here with me today it is Tyler Knaeble. Talk to me.
God, we have never been more back as a show, as a company. We are so back. Falcons are back. We are back. Let's have a great show today, baby. Let's have it. Let's just get after it today.
I love the energy. I love the youthful energy Tyler brings to this entire program. Sometimes it's just from behind the scenes, inside the chat. You can see him getting people hyped up. Now front and center. And this is a success story. Anyone out there can email me, podfather@rotounderworld.com, podfather@rotounderworld.com. If you want to get started and have a show where you just talk football and talk fantasy and you think you can do it, well, reach out to me. And you can start by producing a show, learn how it works, and then if you like it, you can start to do some writing. You can start to do some of your own hosting of shows. It's a very straightforward path if you want to put some work in. So reach out to me, podfather@rotounderworld.com. We have a couple openings, a couple shows, have a couple slots for producers. Not much. It's very competitive. But as of this moment, there is a window where you can throw your hat in there and get started with us. And then before you know it, you're on shows. Before you know it, your name is in lights. It's great. It's great. Tyler, what was the most interesting performance from week 2?
I thought the most interesting one was Jackson Smith and Jigba. Just a career game. Now, you look at the stat line, it's like 16 targets, 12 catches, 117 yards. Great day for JSN, kind of what we expected to see with this new Ryan Grubb, coordinator change, away from the Pete Carroll stuff, away from the 2005 offense, as I like to call it, actually living like it's 2024 and playing football like that. The most interesting part of it, though, this is the first career game for JSN where he's had over 65 receiving yards. His first in the NFL, at least.
So he doubled his previous career high.
Yes, which is insane.
That is insane. That's cool. That's a great stat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So JSN has proven that he belongs where we've had him in the Dynasty rankings. That was one of those rankings where the subscribers were emailing us, tweeting us, saying, this is a little bullish. What has JSN done? Are you guys falling for it? Another Ohio State receiver. What's going on here? This guy is a possession receiver. He's a dink and dunk, or whatever they wanted to say about JSN. And we said, well, no, this Jackson Smith and Jigba was a big-time playmaker in college. They drafted him in the first round. There's actually not a lot not to like about him. He's a big-time target commander. We love when players are just own the slot position in the NFL. And how old's Tyler Lockett? And what has DK Metcalf done recently? And he's certainly better than the other receiver that was drafted right around him in Jordan Addison. And he hasn't been arrested or pulled over or whatever. Any not to my knowledge, I don't think he's had any major interactions with law enforcement in his car. So that's good. So that's really him and Zay Flowers. Now him and Zay Flowers are much more similar, and Jordan Addison is down in like this other tier, which coming out was what I expected. The path for him to be the target leader in Seattle is pretty clear because you have an outside receiver, an alpha, that can make plays and be very inconsistent week to week depending on which alpha corner he's matched up against, because DK Metcalf's sort of a fake alpha receiver, and he's going to have weeks when there's a soft matchup, and then he's going to get erased in the difficult matchups. The consistent target earner will always be Jackson Smith and Jigba. In Minnesota, it's always going to be Justin Jefferson. That's a real alpha. So you're never going to be out targeting Justin Jefferson. You're never going to outproduce him. So what is the upside really of Jordan Addison? I never really understood that. JSN was where to put your chips. So what about the player that disappointed you most through the first 2 weeks? Not just last week, but so far this season, you're looking down, you're going, uh-oh.
I got two names, kind of three. So the first one was Caleb Williams, but in parentheses, I also put Shane Waldron. I cannot stand Shane Waldron for why I was so high on JSN this year. Shane Waldron has proven as an offensive coordinator. Like, that was all everyone was tweeting about on Sunday Night Football is Shane Waldron. What is this play calling? Like, what are we actually doing? I don't think he's a good play caller. He's got some Arthur Smith in him, where he's got this affinity, like where Arthur Smith, he loved Jonnu Smith. He couldn't get enough of him. Shane Waldron loves Gerald Everett. He cannot, because I think it sounds like he was the one who pushed for him when he was with LA to get drafted by the Rams. The Rams drafted him, so he had him in LA. He brings him over to the Bears. And now, like, Cole Kmet, who they just paid a ton of money this offseason, like, he can't get on the field because it's Gerald Everett season. They're throwing tight end screens to Gerald Everett because Waldron can't get enough of this guy. So, but Caleb Williams in the part of that too, like, we were drafting these Bears receivers pretty high. Like, Keenan was going, in that 4th, 5th round. Caleb was one of the top, I think, 12 quarterbacks off the board as well. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze in that kind of that last tier of receivers you feel good drafting about. And really none of them have done anything because it's been a Caleb problem. I think it's been a play calling problem. So I think Caleb Williams and just the Bears offense in general is one that has disappointed me. I don't know if I expected more. I mean, he still is a rookie, but I would have liked to see, like, it's looked it's okay for it to look fine, but it looks awful right now.
I expected more.
Yeah.
I mean, Odunze, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. How could you not have expected more? Even the tight ends. It's one of the better tight end duos in the league. And everyone's like, oh, Arthur Smith, Shane Waldron, these are the worst of the worst. Light on specifics, right? Offensive coordinator doesn't know what he's doing, but always light on specifics. You've provided a bit of a skeleton key to understand, hey, if this offensive coordinator is sort of H-back obsessed, like it's not a tight end really that he's after. He's after a Swiss Army knife tweener player, the 242-pound tight end that you can also line up in the backfield, that can line up all over the formation. Even if you have an inline tight end, this guy can be a real chess piece, right? If the offensive coordinator is obsessed with the 240-pound chess piece player, that's a recipe for the real skilled players to be underserved.
Yeah, I just cannot get out. Because I like JSN last year, and it's just look at the difference the way they're using it. I know we're going back to Seattle, but look at the way in the difference that they are using JSN this year. JSN was like his ADOT last year was like, I think for like a good 4 or 5 weeks, it was negative. They were throwing the ball like, oh, he's just a guy we throw the ball to like a little bit, on the perimeter in the screen game, in the quick game, stuff like that. Now JSN's running actual routes. He's getting down the field. I can get 8 out of at least 10 in week 2. And I don't even know if he ever had that high 8 out in any game with Shane Waldron as OC. So I think this is a true Shane Waldron problem. I would be shocked if Waldron's not gone next year and their Eberflus is gone. I think they're going to get one of these Ben Johnson guys, a Slowick, or one of these offensive-minded OCs to head coach, one of a generational talent in Caleb Williams.
But Eberflus is going to keep the money, or Eberflus's wife is going to keep the money. She's going to keep the mansion on the lake. The mansion on the lake's not going anywhere. They're going to pocket the cash. All these coaches get overpaid. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely. Just the Hard Knocks was just too much for me. Too much. It was I've never seen it quite this overt, where the head coach and his family, they were just in your face and had something to prove. There was clearly an insecurity there. Let's make sure that we show off the entire property. Let's show every single bit of square footage and acreage. Let's have him walking along the lake, and all. And I'm like, listen, do we know NFL coaches make a lot of money? I think we're cool. We get it. You have a great house. Understood, right? At the end of the day, what is he doing? I mean, I know you're a football coach too, but at the end of the day, what does it say about us in the post-Roman Empire, new Roman Empire society, that the guy that tells the gladiators what to do is the guy with the mansion on the lake? It's a little much. It's a little much. It was a little pukey to me, that aspect of the Hard Knocks, but it was a great window into it. And I knew it when my daughter even was rolling her eyes. So my daughter's rolling her eyes at the Eberflusses, and I'm like, I know. It's a little, yeah. You're a football coach. Get over yourself. That's what I'm. Is that fair? Is it fair for me to say, hey, you're a football coach, you're a football family, you're not, a Fortune 500 leader? Get over yourself.
He was flexing for sure, but I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I'm a football coach too. I don't make anywhere near the money Eberflus is making. I'll tell you that right now. But I don't know. Maybe
but no football coach does. It's just a few guys, and almost all of them end up being catastrophic failures.
Well,
if it's Bill Belichick and you've made your franchise tens of millions of dollars, and you want to have a mansion in Cape Cod, by all means. But these guys that have done nothing, there's not really a meritocracy. It's like, hey, you work your way up, take an interim head coaching job. The thing is, they don't have to pay him anything. Eberflus would have taken a head coaching job for $500,000. They didn't have to pay him $5 million. Pay him $500K. It's wasted money. Of course, these guys are all foaming at the mouth to get head coaching jobs and prove themselves. Let them prove themselves. Is that fair, Tyler? As a coach,
fair. That's fair.
Isn't that fair?
I just want to say this isn't the first
what
time
has he done?
These head coaches flex their houses like this. Remember the draft in 2020? Cliff Kingsbury's like in this freaking like Arizona, like just the ceiling's like 30 feet high, and he's like hanging out. And they cut to Belichick and
but
Mike
Sean
Zimmer.
McVay's won a Super Bowl. Sean McVay wants to flex. That's different. You have a it's just a little different. Listen to me. Listen to what I'm saying. What a crank I am that this is somehow how I've decided to take the show. I'm embarrassed. Let's move on. Football talk. Come on. Listen to me. What a crank.
A lot of back in my day sounding right now.
What a back in my day crank over here. Back in my day, only the really important people in society got money. Never been true. Let's talk about Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara probably deserves more money. Alvin Kamara, can you hold out after week 2? Alvin Kamara, actually, some of that Eberflus money should be transferred over to Kamara. I don't know. Dennis Allen, he may be the one coach that's not getting paid. I don't know how much. We'll have to look up what Dennis Allen's salary is. Maybe he should, if there's one coach that actually deserves his salary, it might actually be Dennis Allen, because he was not respected. Everyone that brought on said he's going to be the first coach fired. And then you look up and they are the best team in the league. So what's going on with the Saints? What's going on with Kamara? Like, just talk about this situation. It's lovely. It's lovely.
I'm telling you right now, Dennis Allen does not deserve the money he's making. That money should be given to Clint Kubiak, the new offensive coordinator for the Saints, because he has worked wonders. I know you're not an OC play caller guy. I 100%. I'm an offensive head coach. I'm a whatever. Like, I'm a co-play caller for our sophomore team. But I truly feel like play calling does matter. And Clint Kubiak, what he's done for the Saints offense has mean like Pete Carmichael. It's the same group of guys. It is the same group of guys. It is the same like infrastructure. There hasn't really been any big changes on the offense. It's literally a copy paste from last year to this year. But now all of a sudden they're blowing the doors off Carolina, off the Cowboys. Like Clint Kubiak is I saw a stat where the Saints were dead last in the league in pre-snap motion last year. Kubiak brings that Shanahan type of offense over to New Orleans. Now they're number 1 in the league in pre-snap motion. So I think that really matters. What'd you find over there? What do you
Dennis Allen signed a 4-year, $32 million contract with the Saints.
What was that, 3 years ago?
I don't care. What? What?
And he was already there. They signed him.
That is crazy to me. That is good for him. You know what? Good for him. I got to stop being such a crank, right? And stop being so resentful. And just, hey, he figured out some glitch in the matrix. He found some little crack in the economy that he could slither his way into and make $30 million. Good for him.
Good for Dennis Allen, man. Good for
him. Good for Eberflus.
All these guys who get contracts.
I love those guys. Well deserved. Great stuff.
Yeah.
So Alvin Kamara, he was really a great pick all along, right? I mean, Rich Rebar circled him as the running back to draft as your hero RB, which was prescient.
Yeah, Kamara, he had 20-plus touches in the first 2 weeks, 20-plus touches in back-to-back games. He's got 5 touchdowns, and that's inflated because of the 4-touchdown game. But and he's got 7 catches through 2 games. Like, this is what we've, saw after last year. He had the 3-game suspension, but then he's getting fed the ball. They're just feeding him the ball, and I think some people wondered, there's the age, there's the contract. Is he gonna hold up? It's a new, play caller, and he's still getting fed the ball because he's one of the best their best playmakers on offense. And Kamara's the man. He's an absolute man.
He's never had more than 240 rush attempts. He's only had more than 200 in 2 seasons. Okay? So 2 seasons, big deal, right? Last year, he was the RB3 in fantasy points per game. He had 75 catches. And in a format that rewards receptions, or at least half PPR, underdog, okay, not full PPR, so let's just, in best ball, there's a premium on wide receivers. More wide receivers start on underdog, and it's half PPR. Do you know what Kamara's ADP was? To close it out, at the beginning of September, do you know Kamara's underdog ADP?
I'm going to guess, I don't know the exact ADP, but I'm going to guess he was RB 18.
That's a wow. That's good.
Was he RB 18?
No, it was very close. Let's pull it up. We're going to pull it up right now. I got to pull this thing up. We're going to show you right now what it is.
I was going to say 17. I mean, I did all these drafts. I pretty much had the ADP memorized, so I should have knew that. I should have known
68.7. 68.7 ADP for Alvin Kamara. 7th round Alvin Kamara. That's your league winner right there, folks. That's a guy that can break fantasy. He didn't have to draft in the first round, didn't have to draft in the second round, didn't have to draft in the third round, didn't have to draft in the fourth round, didn't have to draft in the fifth round, didn't have to draft in the sixth round. You could get him in the 7th round in some drafts. What a joke.
You always talk about it too. If there's one theme on this show, like I said, I've seen every episode this year, 0 RB. That's why you draft 0 RB right there. It's because you can find that league winner where like Kamara is playing better than, like I don't know, Josh Jacobs has some good games, but like you'd rather have Alvin Kamara right now. You'd rather have Kamara. He's like the RB1 right now. You'd rather have him over anybody.
Yeah, the upside for Kamara is an extra 30 receptions at least on a guy like a Josh Jacobs. I mean, what? Too easy, man. Too easy. Life is too easy sometimes. Draft Alvin Kamara. I did not think that the Saints would be good. Most people did not. But this was supposed to be a high-scoring division where it's not like Tampa's rolling out a suffocating defense. Neither is the Falcons. Those teams seem to have better offenses than defenses. Same was true for the Saints. They still had most of their offensive pieces. They've been, losing a bunch of guys on defense and not being able to backfill them. So this is the argument for, this year, NFC South, NFC West, going to be a lot of shootouts, except for those games against Carolina, but those will just be blowouts instead of shootouts. Either way, you're scoring points in those games. The confidence that we have that Team X is going to exceed expectations is always too high, right? Or conversely, that Team Y is going to miss expectations. We're almost always too confident in our predictions about how teams will succeed or fail year to year in the NFL. Just look at last year with the Houston Texans, right? So that possibility was always out there that the Saints could actually be good this year. I'm still shocked by it. They did beat Carolina in week 1. So really, we only have 1 week of impressive football. Now, again, blowing out Carolina, an NFL franchise, scoring 40 points, that's not nothing. Right? But at the end of the day, they've had 1 big impressive win. 1 more week. They do it for 1 more week. I mean, and everything runs through Kamara in the running game. The thing with Kamara is he's not a traditional satellite back. He's a satellite back plus in that he gets the ball inside the 5-yard line. That's the beauty of it. That's what everyone wants. Like, oh, imagine Jahmyr Gibbs getting those touches. Yeah, but you were drafting this guy at the 1-2 turn in Jahmyr Gibbs, hoping maybe he could be Alvin Kamara instead of getting Alvin Kamara in round 6. This was my argument throughout the summer, that why are you drafting players in hopes that they will project to be one day a player who already exists and you can already get in round 5.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have some fun. Go back and look at Derek Carr's final underdog ADP. He was going underneath pretty much guys who weren't even starting yet. He was going behind Bryce Young. He was going behind Drake May and McCarthy and these guys who hadn't even played like a snap of NFL football yet. Like Derek Carr was like the last starting quarterback to be drafted on underdog this offseason. Like the only time he's getting drafted is like in a Olave draft or trying to stack him up, or Kamara draft or Shaheed, something like that, just in hopes to stack.
He signed a $150 million deal with the Saints as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so he's another guy that signed a big bloated contract. They've committed between Derek Carr and Dennis Allen $182 million. Yeah, his final underdog ADP, I won't pull it up. I won't test you on this. 203.
Yeah.
Slot 203. He was going at QB 30. QB 30. That's embarrassing. And what's interesting, if you go back and look at his career, annual yardage totals, 4,800 yards, 4,100, 4,000, 4,000. We're talking about 4 straight seasons with 4,000 or more yards. Come on, man. Come on. In best ball, all you need is some spike weeks and a guy that is going to be a regular starter. There was always a much higher probability that Carr lasted the full season than Bryce Young.
Yeah, Derek Carr. I mean, people were calling for like Rattler in like week 1. They're like, oh, I can't wait to see Rattler get out there at some point this year. I think that's why everyone was so infatuated by this Rattler stat line. That's it. In the underdog streets, people were like, they're looking for upside because they're not worried about week 1. They're worried about week 17. Who's going to be starting week 17? And I think the consensus was like kind of what you said, like the Saints are going to be bad. Dennis Allen's going to be the first coach to get fired. Derek Carr is going to lose his job because they want to see what Rattler's got. Like right now, it looks the exact opposite of that.
Let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr. Now, Marvin Harrison Jr., also a second-round pick right there with Jahmyr Gibbs. He put together a great week 2. 50% catch rate, not impressive, but all the other metrics really impressive. Really impressive stuff. 60-yard bomb. Good for you. Right, good for you. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think he's actually going to pay off at ADP, or was this a blip?
I don't think he's going to pay off at ADP. It's so hard just where he's being drafted. Like, I think he kind of always belonged closer to like where the neighbor's ADP was. A guy who's got juice. You're excited about him. Maybe like that 3rd round, somewhere in there would have been a fine
what was
spot.
Your underdog ADP and rostership with Marvin Harrison?
I had about like 8%,
so you had like average amounts. You were drafting him when he was there.
Yeah, so
you weren't fading him. You're saying this, but you weren't fading him. You didn't have him down to like 4%.
It's so scary to have under like 8% of a guy in the first 2 rounds because it's just so scary to have. Like you normally want to have 6 to 8%.
You gotta take a stand, Tyler. Were you under 8% on Puka Nacua?
I was just gonna say Puka Nacua was the one guy I was fading in the first round. That was the one guy.
Thank God. Well, those are the 2 obvious ones. Those are the 2 clear and obvious ones. And I'm happy to take a week 2 projection L, as every fantasy expert is wrong about at least 30% of their projections week in, week out. I'm happy to take that. I'll take it. Guilty. I didn't know Marvin Harrison was going to put up that kind of stat line, even in a quintessential squeaky wheel game. I didn't see him doing quite that, and I'm happy for him, but I still don't like him as a person. We will see. I think so wait and see on Marvin Harrison. You're not running out to adjust. You're thinking now he's answered some critics, certainly. We're on to week 3. And if he can follow it up, the problem is the Cardinals' schedule. Rams, Lions, rat-a-tat-tat. Scary. If you're sitting where I'm sitting, it's scary. Though Mike Evans was essentially a 0. So the outside receiver so far has been bottled up by Lions corners. We'll see what happens this week. It's another big week. We're looking at it like a 52.5 point total. Lions at Cardinals. Everyone's expecting big things. I'm sure Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be heavily rostered in DFS. If he face plants in week 3, you're going to hear about it on this show. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, you will be there no matter what.
Though there is no Mind of Mansion. I guess we should have a programming note for everyone. There's no Mind of Mansion next week. Next week, there will be a Sonic Truth instead. So we'll be swapping out Sonic Truth for Mind of Mansion. It is in season. I can't do every podcast that I ever do. Can't do weekly decision points and top 10 takeaways and Mind of Mansions and Sonic Truths. There's just not enough Podfather in the day. So, we do our best to keep at least multiple shows humming along with Tyler as my fearless producer. And he clearly knows his stuff, clearly. Now, in that game, I think there is one of the sure things at the running back position, and that's David Montgomery. David Montgomery is a screaming start again in week 3. He is a can't miss. If I was going to circle a can't miss running back that's not someone like Bijan Robinson, this week it would be David Montgomery.
Yeah, David Montgomery, man. It's just he was like going right before that Kamara on underdog. So you could get him like, it was kind of like it was like all the, the vet running backs where you got Jacobs off the board. You got, maybe like that Derrick Henry range. And then there's a lull then it's all receivers. And then Dave Montgomery's kind of in that weird tier where it's like he had a good year last year, but we're expecting more from Gibbs. But it's kind of been more of the same what we saw last year. I think some people, Gibbs is going at the 1-2 turn. I think some people really expected him to be like the clear 1A back. It hasn't been that way. It's Dave Montgomery is still getting he's still getting the goal line. We saw in that overtime game in week 1. And he's just looked really good. He still looks like David Montgomery has been on the Lions.
None of these early running backs are going to get there. Maybe Saquon does. Saquon's certainly trending in that direction, even if he's dropping passes. He had his knee down at the 1-inch line, would have had yet another touchdown. So Saquon's trending toward getting there. Bijan certainly has the talent to get there and the situation, especially if Kirk Cousins continues to play better and better and rehabilitate and strengthen the Achilles. Breece Hall has been productive enough where if you just extrapolate Breece Hall's statistics, he'll get there. There's no way you can extrapolate Achan's statistics because he just won't hold up. So you were better off just fading the running back position because the running back dead zone was as alive as it's ever been with Alvin Kamara, first and foremost, being the shining light in the darkness of the dead zone. And then you've got Montgomery, you've got Aaron Jones, you've got Ramondre Stevenson, you've got Brian Robinson, you've got Tony Pollard. Of the non-Kamara dead zone backs, who do you like the most of that group?
It's Brian Robinson for me. We talk about Montgomery. I love Montgomery. He was the other one I was debating about, but I've been such a B-Rob guy. Just where his cost was in drafts this summer. He's got 15 plus touches in both games he's played, 90 plus yards in both those games as well. And kind of what I was thinking has kind of come true where he's just James Conner in the Cliff Kingsbury offense. Like Cliff Kingsbury, this backfield looks like the Cardinals from 2020 where it's Conner and it's Chase Edmonds. Eckler is Chase Edmonds and James Conner is Brian Robinson. He's going to get all the goal line work. He's going to get a majority of the carries. He might catch, a couple dump off passes here and there.
Tyler, this is where I love coach analysis. If you want to use a coach to build a historical parallel, I'm all in, man. That illustration you gave, that chills because it never occurred to me. It makes perfect sense. That's the utility of coach analysis, not coach X fixed player Y.
I don't get me started on the Canales thing because I thought he was going to fix Bryce Young, but we won't talk about that because that was obviously
we won't talk about that. And the beauty is I'm the only one that even tries to talk about it or talks about it at all ever. No fantasy analyst will ever talk about it because it's all they talk about. And then when it ultimately never comes to be, it's like it never happened. There's no accountability for all this coach worship and all the coach-centric analysis in fantasy football. There never has been. It's been my hobby horse topic that I've been complaining about for 10 years. And I'm not going to hold you accountable either because you're on my team. So that's another beauty of being under the wing of the dragon is that it's warm under here and there's protection. You're not going to get the fire from me because, you're helping me out, and that's just how it works. And that's another reason why people should email us, podfather@rotowonderworld.com, and become a producer. Great. I think it's going to be Aaron Jones, though he did leave, of course, left the game, dinged up. Aaron Jones dinged up. I know this is a theme. I will continue to believe that he will tough it out. He will be the guy. I didn't love seeing Ty Chandler come in and look so explosive. But that's what Ty Chandler is. Ty Chandler is an explosive slasher. He has a role. But look who got all the receptions. It was Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is still, an Alvin Kamara level talent in the league. Kamara, McCaffrey, Gibbs. These are the satellite back plus backs that can break fantasy. So he's the guy that I'm going to, if you could have started Kamara in round 6, Aaron Jones in round 7, or in a managed league, Kamara round 5, Jones round 6. I mean, that is the zero RB zenith of a roster build in the history, right? You have to go back to 2013, Jamal Charles in the 5th round to go back and get a guy of that caliber, a satellite back plus of that caliber with that kind of fantasy breaking upside to anchor a zero RB team. And now you can have multiple of those guys. That's why this is going to be a historic year for zero RB builds. And then it extends out round by round by round. Oh, next round. Oh, there's Brian Robinson. Next round. Then you're out to like guys like Zach Moss getting an 80% snap share in week 2 tethered to Joe Burrow.
Yeah, the Zach Moss stuff, I'm not really in on Zach Moss. I don't think he belongs in that group with those guys. He was kind of going there a little earlier in the summer. Then you get this Chase Brown steam, which it really hasn't come to fruition on that either. He hasn't really gotten a ton of run at all.
Brown's not going to be a thing. They tried to make Chase Brown a thing, and it didn't happen. And here's the thing. The only reason I was even dabbling on Chase Brown is because I know that the Bengals were trying to make him a thing. So when it was the Bengals so actively trying to make him a thing that I'm forced to try to also get some exposure, but always in the back of my mind going, it's going to be Zach Moss.
Yeah, but Zach Moss hasn't been good, though. That's the thing. He's got what? He's got, let me see what I wrote down here. He has barely over 100 yards in 2 combined weeks. Like, he's got some nice carry games, but he's not a single game with over 55 rushing yards. Like, he hasn't done anything. Like, yeah, a couple of tough defenses. You got New England week 1. Chiefs I've always been pretty good against the run in week 2, but like, it's not like Moss is out there, melting faces like he was with the Colts. And I had this theory. And again, I'm going to go on the coach speak because I think it freaking matters, baby. Here we go.
No, it matters if you want to illustrate a point of the historic parallel, then that's the right tool in the toolbox.
Here's the point. I just think I wrote down hot take. Shane Steichen is a run genius. So you look at what Shane Steichen has done. He made Miles Sanders look like one of the best fantasy running backs with the Eagles that one year, their Super Bowl year. He comes to the Colts next year. Zach Moss, the best year of his career, where he was historically behind Devin Singletary in Buffalo. Like, he was kind of just an afterthought in Buffalo. Goes to the Colts, has a really good year. And now he's with Cincinnati. He just looks like he did in Buffalo again. Like, I just think Shane Steichen is the guy. Like, he's the common denominator in all these, like, mid running backs or like mid to below average running backs. Like, what has Miles Sanders done without Shane Steichen? What has Zach Moss done without Shane Steichen? So I think that's why I love JT so much, is because JT, great weekly play in some of these battle royale drafts, some of these DFS stuff. I think that's what you have to be paying attention to, is the Shane Steichen run genius merchant that he's making average guys look good, and he's going to make good guys, great guys, look unbelievable.
Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson. Quentin Nelson. Those are the real reasons. Colts this week face the Bears, though. The Bears' defense is vastly improved.
Yes. Yeah, Bears' defense is fine. But even DeAndre
42.5-point total, but the Colts are at home. The Colts are at home. If there's going to be a run funnel game for the Colts where they're going to be disincentivized to throw to Michael Pittman because top corner in the league, Jalen Johnson's locking him up, okay, then it's probably going to be, if you just think about the siphoning of touches to the area of least resistance on the football field, it's going to go, the ball's going to go to Jonathan Taylor.
Hopefully. And talking about Michael Pittman, he's not getting much of anything right now either. He's kind of, an afterthought in that offense. It's Alec
there were
Pierce.
multiple guests on this show, and we can go back and we can go to the logs and the transcripts of this show that said Michael Pittman was the stay away, the guy they refused to draft, the receiver they refused to draft in like round 3, round 4. They're like, it doesn't make any logical sense. There's a lot of wide receiver options that are quality players. Now that's apparently even extends to Alec Pierce. And if you have a mobile first quarterback with a run-oriented offense with Jonathan Taylor, it's just a very thin play. To draft a receiver in that environment, in that play environment, it's a very thin play to go just on historic target volume, Michael Pittman. There isn't a lot of upside there, and the downside is he just gets starved for targets.
Yeah. And part of the reason is like, even if Michael Pittman, like it's the offense that's been worrisome. I didn't have a ton of Pittman. He was one of my least drafted players, in that top 4 to 5 rounds. So I feel good about that. But Alec Pierce is just like the wide receiver 1 right now in that offense. He's got, I wrote about it later as my annoying player, but Alec Pierce is 181 total yards through 2 games and a touchdown. He's number 1 in the league in ADOT because what does Richardson do well? He runs the ball and he has a cannon. He's not good at like where I think Minshew's maybe not as good of a quarterback as Richardson was, but Minshew was better at getting the ball to receivers, in that short to intermediate game than Richardson is. He had like 9 completions in week 1. He's not a passer. He's a like, look how far I can throw the ball guy, or like I can run awesome, but like he's not like a passer.
The receiver who's even going late that I said has no business on rosters was Josh Downs. And the reason is that it's a terrible skill match. He's going to be starved for targets, and then when he is running routes, he's running routes tethered to a quarterback who wants nothing to do with that area of the football field with his passes. He is looking to get out, roll out, create time, and get it down the field. So it was always an Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman were better fits for Anthony Richardson than, say, a Josh Downs. So that's why it never made any sense. Wherever you're taking Josh Downs in best ball is too high. Now, I'm pulling up my fab guidance for the wide receiver position for this week on Patreon, patreon.com/podfather. And though Alec Pierce has been productive, I still had him below even Quentin Johnston, and I had him below Andre Ioshivos. Now, Ioshivos, he may be totally nullified because T. Higgins returns, but just in case T. Higgins is out one more week, against Washington, Ioshivos is interesting, right? So that's much more interesting. The third receiver on the Bengals is just a better play than the third receiver on the Colts, week in, week out. So if there was ever a sell high in Dynasty, young receiver with speed, oh, look, he's interesting. He's got juice. Maybe this is Anthony Richardson's new favorite receiver. Sell. Get it. If you could somehow get even, a second round rookie pick would be very unlikely. I would even trade him for a third in Dynasty. I would sell high on Alec Pierce in Dynasty. Those trades are out there. People are shaking their head in the chat going, no way. Oh, they're out there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I believe Zach Moss is capable of jumping into that group just on touchdown equity alone, and the fact that I think that the slipper is off for Chase Brown. I think that they've had a reckoning, At halftime, they just basically said, okay, we're pulling the plug on this Chase Brown experiment. And that necessarily means it's going to be the Zach Moss show in that backfield. And that offense is destined to improve. Zach Taylor, first coach fired in the NFL. Is that fair?
He could, it's fair, 100%. I mean, the expectations with that team are so high. It's like this is like almost like the last year of like their win now window, because Trey Hendrickson, like, he's not getting paid. He's pissed off. He didn't get a new contract. Like, they're going to be paying too many guys. You cannot pay. Like, T. Higgins is going to be gone after this year. Like, you just can't afford to pay Burrow, Chase, and Higgins. You can't do it and expect to build a good team around the rest of what you have. So I think if it doesn't look great this year, I don't know if Zach Taylor, they're like stoked to have Zach Taylor around for like the rebuild or like the retool, kind of like what Buffalo's doing right now. We'll see how that all plays out, but 100% fair to say Zach Taylor could be the first guy out.
He will resurface as an offensive coordinator somewhere and be the next genius offense. I'm making this call now. I'm saying it now, years in advance. Bookmark the show. There will be fantasy analysts citing Zach Taylor as offensive coordinator du jour that is fixing or enabling or elevating player X in fantasy football, and you got to get him because of Zach Taylor. That is going to happen. 2 years from now, that narrative will exist. The one guy, if I had to pick a coach in the NFL who actually does make a difference, it would have to be Andy Reid. I mean, Andy Reid has been doing it, and even though Travis Kelce is now dust, what did Travis Kelce have, 1 catch for 4 yards last week? It's just a joke at this point. Like, it's hilarious. Like, my full fade of Travis Kelce, it could not have gone any better. Full fade of Puka Nacua. I understand the injury. No one's rooting for an injury, but he wasn't going to get there either way. So my fades are looking brilliant, as always. Now, it doesn't matter. Andy Reid finds a way. Guys age out of his system. Guys get paid $400 million and tilt the salary cap against the team, and he figures it out. So if there was a coach, I would say, you know what? This guy, right? This guy. It's funny how, though, if you go back the last 20 years, you would say Andy Reid and Bill Belichick. They also happen to be anchored by Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. So again, even the guy that I would, if forced, identify as a big-time difference maker at the head coach position, they happen to have the best quarterbacks of the generation. So it's just, you see, this is the trap. That illustrates the trap of the coach analysis. That said, let's talk about Rashee Rice, the next guy that Andy Reid has found and elevated. Where would he go? What would his ADP be in Best Ball Mania if we redrafted?
I think it'd be I think it could be high as the 1-2 turn, probably somewhere in the middle of the second. Just because if you're looking at like the guys who are going to the 1-2 turn, like if I just said a name like Drake London, like you're definitely taking Rashee Rice over Drake London. Same thing with Marvin Harrison.
Puka.
Same thing with Puka Nacua. Exact same thing.
So it's the 1-2 turn. It's like the 111.
Yeah, 111. Nico Collins probably in that same round. I know you don't like Nico, but Nico's been off to a fire start.
Well, I'm allowed to change my position as new information comes in. And people always criticize politicians and fantasy analysts, sports commentators, you name it. Oh, you flip-flopped. You flip-flop. Well, it would be easy. I'm like, go ahead and hit me with that criticism in a debate, because I'll just cite this guy named Bayes who invented the Bayesian process. And which is, one of the cornerstones of social science. So it's fine. If you just come into a situation with all these preconceived notions and never change your position based on new information, then that is the definition of stupidity. So of course I'm going to be, changing my opinion of a player if he continues to exceed expectations. And this is what's happening with Nico Collins. Nico Collins was a 3rd-round pick who didn't produce for 2 years. finally gets this massive quarterback upgrade, has some incredible spike weeks against the worst secondaries in the league, specifically Indianapolis. I asked the question, does it make sense to draft the most expensive of a 3-receiver set if all 3 of them are going to be productive this year? It's almost always tactically sound to take the least expensive, in this case Tank Dell, not the most expensive of the 3, especially if their combined ADPs would be impossible to to justify once all the fantasy points are allocated at the end of the year. So that was it was a structural argument as much as anything against Nico Collins, not necessarily his game. I understood that his yards per route run was exceptional. I run playerprofiler.com. Of course I know that. But I've also seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of great efficiency metrics that were fueled by small sample traps. And I'm not going to fall for that. And I think it was a fair position to take to wait and see and be, under rostered on the most expensive of the overpriced receivers in Houston. In hindsight, I think it was an absolute perfect position to take. And if I were digging in at this point in the season and saying, no, he's still overrated, then you can question whether I'm here for just the takes or I'm here for sound strategy and analysis. So I'm here to say we need to officially change our assumptions of Nico Collins. I think he is actually a really good receiver. And he's met every test and exceeded expectations for the first 2 weeks. There's nothing fluky about this guy. To put 10 games together is one thing. To put a season and a half together where now opposing defenses have circled you, have game planned against you, and you are still producing 150 yards, now you've proven yourself. But to go from a 3rd-round pick who wasn't productive in college, who wasn't productive through 2 seasons in the NFL, and ask him to produce for fewer than 20 games, I think that's a fair thing to ask.
Yeah, and I was right there with you, man. I had so much Tank Dell. I had a little bit of Diggs, but just you get your shares of Nico because you got to get your shares of everybody in the 2nd round. But it felt like always like Tank Dell was like the guys like, oh, you can get Tank Dell 3 rounds later that you can get Nico, or maybe 2 rounds later. And it's like, it's just such a better, bet. You feel better about yourself. It's like, let me just draft the guy who has just an equal chance of finishing as the wide receiver 1 in that offense, but you can get him 2 rounds later at cost. So I was there with you. And Tank Dell, not great. He should have had a 60-yard catch on Sunday Night Football. He drops it and just falls down. What can you do? It's it's so crazy how these singular plays can change how you feel about a player. If Drake London doesn't catch that touchdown, it's like Drake London's the worst pick in fantasy football. Or it's Chris Olave falls short at the 1-yard line, and now it's okay, is he a sell or something like that? So it's just it's one play, it's 1 yard short. It's just it's crazy how this stuff works.
Heavy in the chat. Listen to this guy. This guy's heavy, man. This guy's he's got some heavy thoughts. Right? He says progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. George Bernard Shaw. George Bernard Shaw clearly influenced by one Thomas Bayes. As am I. Go ahead, though. Go ahead. No, please. Please, by all means. By all means. Victory lap in the chat. Right? Pour the cold water on the take. Go ahead. Please. Please. It helps with engagement. Tyler, it helps to run our YouTube channel. Alex McQuarter, he's in the chat as well, helping to run the YouTube channel. Please go to the comments section and not just the live chat, the comments on the show, and let us know what you think. Tell me how stupid I am and how wrong I was and how you knew exactly how wrong I was going to be, and then and how smart you are. Please let the world know how smart you are especially in relation to how stupid I am. But please do that in the comments. We like nothing more than that. It was funny. Tyler and I were talking before the show, and we were looking at a show from, I think, a couple days ago. It was the top 10 takeaway show, actually. So we were on YouTube. We happened to be on the top 10 takeaway show, and I was so amused by this. Tyler said, Matt, don't look at the comments. He's like, don't look at the comments. Like he was protecting me, right? I was like, that's so nice of you, man. I really appreciate you looking out for me. But it's okay. Not only do they not affect me, the negative comments not affect me, I actively root for them. So I'm the last person on planet Earth, right? And again, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office knows that I'm the Podfather. And to be the Podfather, you can't care about negative comments. You don't get that seal. If you are worried about negative comments and you're holding back your takes, like, oh man, I really want to tell people to be underweight on Underdog on Nico Collins, but I'm worried I might be wrong. And if I'm wrong, man, people might criticize me. They may say something mean in the comments. Oh, some insecure person who just wants to be heard might say something mean about me on an online forum. And man, that would really hurt my feelings. And then someone else might read it, and then they might think it's true. And then suddenly I have no credibility, and no one will listen to my show anymore. And all of a sudden I can't be a podcaster. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, I love Nico Collins. No, man. Here's what I think. This guy's a value because of these reasons. This guy's not a value because of these reasons. Cool. There's no way, even in hindsight, anyone is going to convince me that Nico Collins' best ball ADP this summer was a value. There's no way. It was you begrudgingly drafted him there because you could be the alpha in Houston, and you just had to swallow it and get your 5%. That's what it was. It wasn't like a screaming value, oh my God, I can't wait to draft him. Get the hell out of here.
Yeah, 7% Nico Collins for me, so love to see that.
I think you did, which is just fine. That's just fine.
Yeah.
That's just fine. I think that we have once and for all addressed this Nico Collins situation. I think we have.
Mm-hmm.
I think we have. There were players that we were way out ahead on in the rankings. I can tell you that. Not just the Scott Fishbowl rankings, all the rankings. Guys like, let's think. Rashid Shaheed, Evan Ringler, our new analytics whiz. Love Rashid Shaheed this year. And my natural question back to him was, well, then you must like Derek Carr. He's like, yeah, we're ahead on Derek Carr too, right? So where would Rashid Shaheed go on Underdog if we redrafted?
I think you would go right next to Jameson Williams, kind of what we were thinking JMO would be, where it's right after that.
But where would that be? No, but Jameson Williams would now go rounds ahead of where he was going. So where is that?
Yeah, so it would go where JMO was going drafted. So it would be where it was like right after the JSN tier. It was JSN, Jordan Addison, those type of guys. Who else was in that tier? Like Ladd McConkey a little bit in there too. That kind of tier, I think.
Like, you don't think he would have made it up to like Zay Flowers zone?
No, Rashid Shaheed, he's a good spike week guy. I think we may have just got lucky.
Oh,
on,
spike weeks,
the spike week thing.
Wait, wait. So, but this didn't I say Underdog? Didn't I say Best Ball?
No, it's great for best
Don't you
ball,
want spike weeks?
I love spike weeks. That's why I think
you like spike weeks.
But I also can't take like a 0 every single. And again, I think he's
a 0. He's a starter.
I know
he's
he's
offenses in the league.
They're one of the best offenses in the league right now. I'm not ready to say the Saints are going to be a top 5 offense the rest of the way. I like Shaheed. I have a ton of him. I don't want to get ahead of myself in trying to label, like, he doesn't have the upside of the guys you're drafting, like a JSN, like a McConkey. He doesn't have that seasonal long upside. The spike week stuff is great, but he doesn't have the seasonal long upside that I think we liked with McConkey. We liked with a Dunze. We liked with JSN. I don't think he has the seasonal upside those guys have, but he has the spike weekly upside that is we've always known is there.
Ladd McConkey is an incredible trade target right now. Ladd, especially in the wake of this Quentin Johnston 2-touchdown game, this is the week to get Ladd McConkey in all formats. We're talking about Dynasty. We're talking about seasonal leagues. This is the week. This is the week. I've actually been in communication. Let everybody know. I have his cell phone, and if that's one cell phone number, I'm never giving up. I mean, you'd have to waterboard me to get it. Okay, but the cell phone. Do you have a cell phone number that you have to be waterboarded to give up?
Well, what do you mean, like a contact?
Yeah, contact number
of like somebody that
somebody.
I'm confused. Yeah,
you do.
Yeah, I got one. Yeah,
you got one. Okay, you got one. We all have one. I think we all have one.
Yeah.
Mine. His name is R.C. Fischer. R.C. Fischer. I text him once in a while, and but just only when I absolutely feel like he needs this information or I need information. It's like it's a must-have information basis, flowing in both directions. Like it has to be important. Okay. And so I asked him, I was like, so how aggressively are you pursuing Ladd McConkey this week? And he was like, you don't even understand. Beyond. Right, beyond. And guess. So he was very bullish on Ladd McConkey. Also, just to remind everyone, I've never heard anyone on the history of the show be more bullish on an undrafted wide receiver than R.C. Fischer on Rashid Shaheed. So he did it again. It's a long season for Marvin Harrison. We know he didn't like Marvin Harrison, but guess who else he didn't like? Caleb Williams. So he called Caleb Williams struggling, and he called Marvin Harrison struggling. And so far, through 2 games, there's only been one performance between the two of the top skill position guys drafted, which is anything other than a total dud. And that was Marvin Harrison week 2 against the Rams, the nuts matchup. Okay? That's the only area where you could say at all, okay, I guess perhaps R.C. Fischer is disappointed this week in this particular player. Otherwise, he's just been peeling aces, this R.C. Fischer, okay? And when I look up and I see Rashid Shaheed going nuclear again, all I can think about is R.C. Fischer, man. And then I pull up my text and be like, you did it again, buddy. You did it again, this guy. And he taunts people. He taunts people in the chat. He taunts people on social media. They can't get over it. They can't figure out how he does it. They think he's a hot take artist. People at this company. People at Player Profiler, some of the most prestigious analysts at Player Profiler, question R.C. Fischer. And my response has always been, you guys, you just got to knock it off. You got to get over it. You got to get past it. You just got to let him be RC. Let him do his thing. And on occasion, take his advice and let him override maybe a position that you have. If you're not sure, about Rashid Shaheed because you're worried about the Saints offense, just close your eyes and go with RC. Go with him. He'll take you places, this RC Fischer.
So I usually produce the show at work. I'm alone in the store that I work at. And nobody has made me, and you had a lot of great guests on, a top tier guest. This is a first class show, not first class fantasy, but a first class show. Nobody has ever made me audibly gasp and laugh in an episode like RC Fischer has. I'll never forget where I was when he said, "Yeah, Will Levis is better than any quarterback in this class." That one hasn't hit. I'll say it. Will Levis one was crazy, but props to him. The Rashad White one from last year, the huge hit for him, right? Rashid Shaheed's looking great. The Caleb one, it's still early, but it's looking. He can get a couple comments off on Twitter on that one. But
crazy like a fox. He also was much more bullish generally on the Saints offense. Don't forget about that. He was making a case for A.T. Perry. He was making a case for all these guys. He was like, you guys, Okay, so the team's not going to be that good. They're going to be down. Their defense has been aging for the last few years. They haven't been able to backfill the talent, right? So they're slowly trying to rebuild this defense on the fly. In the middle of that, what's going to happen? You're going to be in a situation where the offense is going to have to win games. So why not Rashid Shaheed? Why not Alvin Kamara? Why not even Derek Carr? And it's like, hey, man, I'm done. I'm done. I'm fucking done. I'm done doubting this guy. I'm done. I've been done for a long time. I've been a big believer for a long time, but like everyone also should be done. Everyone else should be done. Be done doubting him. The guy knows things. I mean, you don't think Derek Carr is a stud quarterback, do you?
No, he's not a stud quarterback. We've seen this from Derek Carr before. He has good games. Like he's fine. He's fine.
4,800 yards in a season.
Yeah, that's great. But
Yeah.
it's like, has Derek Carr ever been looked at as a top 10 quarterback? Like, or top 5? Like, you know what I mean? Like he's a good. He's I don't even know how to compare. He's like kind of like
what's the
Geno,
difference
Kirk Cousins
between Derek Carr and Jared Goff? What is the difference?
Jared Goff's been to a Super Bowl.
I guess. Who's going to score more fantasy points this year?
Jared Goff or Derek Carr?
Yeah.
Oh. Derek Carr's got a nice lead. He's got a nice head start.
He's got a
nice
head
head start. Jared Goff didn't look great against Tampa Bay last week. It's close. I'm still going to go with Jared Goff. I refuse to believe Derek Carr can be this good. Like the 3 interception game is coming. It is. It's close.
Of course it is. Of course it's coming. Of course it's coming. Bryce Young benched. Andy Dalton is the starter. For that reason, I have opted to start Chuba Hubbard this week. I have a 0 RB team where I somehow waited 1 round too long and ended up with Najee Harris instead of players like Brian Robinson, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery. And you fly too close to the sun, sometimes you lose your wings. This happens. This happened to me in this one league. Though it's still the right thing to do, you just have to execute at a high level if you're going to go 0 RB, and I didn't. Okay, so now I'm struggling at the RB2 position. I'm going right back to Chuba. Back to Chuba this week with Andy Dalton. How do you not? Let's go. Yeah, Chuba and Deontay Johnson both get there. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think Chuba's a fine play. I liked him. He was a great price in the draft or in drafts this summer. I think Chuba is a good running back. We know he's a good running back by now. Like what he's done last year, what he's done. We know when he's got some spot starts when some of the guys ahead of him have been out. So yeah, I'm right there with you. Chuba's a great play this week.
Yeah, I mean, trade for Deontay Johnson. Right?
I just did
do that. You just did. You just did. Poor John McGlynn. The guy trades. I mean, your co-host for the Monday night tailgate show on the Player Profiler YouTube network. You guys do a live trade. He sends you Deontay Johnson. You send him Quentin Johnston, so he gets the worst of the Johnson Johnstons. And then next thing he looks up, it's now Andy Dalton. And if there's one thing that Andy Dalton can do, I speculated that Bryce Young could do this. So I'm disappointed that Bryce Young couldn't even feed Deontay Johnson. But we know Andy Dalton can. Oh, yes. Andy Dalton's even had some prolific games recently, like in Dallas. He's done it. So we know he can do it. Let's go. Red rifle time. Let's go. Well, who's a better pickup in Superflex? Would you rather have Andy Dalton or would you rather have Skylar Thompson?
If you need a guy for this week or the next couple of weeks, I think it's Skylar Thompson. I trust the weapons in that offense a little bit more. I think the coaching's better. Andy Dalton, though, I feel like could have the job longer. Like it's really hard to just, you sit Bryce Young and it's really hard to just go back to Bryce Young. It's like, oh, now Andy Dalton's bad. We're going to put Bryce back in. You don't do that. It's terrible for Bryce too. It's like, oh yeah, now you guys want me to play after you bench me for 2 weeks. That's just not a good formula. So I feel like Andy Dalton could be around a little bit longer. I guess we don't know exactly how long this concussion thing with Tua is going to last. I saw someone said he could just be out the whole year with it. I don't know how that works, but Skylar Thompson, like the thing that gives me a little hope about Skylar Thompson is like the last time we saw him, he was a rookie. He's like a 7th round pick, came in, didn't look the greatest, but like they had their choice of between him and Mike White, and they did pick him. They cut Mike White, who actually like led
Mike
some really
White
good
had a 400-yard game in New York.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So like they must feel good about Skylar Thompson since he was a rookie to think that he can actually do something, if his name is called upon, which I think is the case here.
Another area where we can actually inject some sound coach analysis. There are some areas where head coaches have skills that they can improve their team. One of the ways is with their backup quarterback. Say what you want about Kyle Shanahan. He saw something in Brock Purdy, and he went with that instinct. Mike McDaniel is a Kyle Shanahan disciple, and he saw something in Skylar Thompson. Though they had paid more money to Mike White had more production on his resume. That matters to me. So there's a few instances where coaching matters. This is one of those where I'm evaluating Skylar Thompson in Superflex. That's the area where I'm like, okay, McDaniel, I like it. I'm in. Right?
Yeah. So in on McDaniel. I love McDaniel. I think he's a great coach against awful to average teams. I would say
I think there's a lot. I mean, so you are very polarized with coaches. I think that's really the big difference.
I love it. Yes.
You either really like coaches or you're really not in on the coach. You think the coach is really bad and he's dragging the team down, or you think the coach is make a big difference and he's really helping out a lot. You don't have a lot of instances where you're like, I think this coach is just down the middle, where almost all the coaches for me, I think, are down the middle. That's the big difference.
There's some that are down the middle for me. There's just guys that I really like and guys that I really don't.
Okay, so name your 3 least favorite coaches. I think we've already named a couple, but just let's rank your least favorite, your 3 worst coaches.
Okay, I'm gonna do play callers / coaches. So Waldron's number 1. It's not even close. Arthur Smith is number 2. And
so who's number 3? This is really the question. Is really who's number 3?
Number 3. Who I just cannot stand. I don't like Dennis Allen. I hate Dennis Allen.
How can you not like Dennis Allen after what he's been doing in New Orleans?
Sean Payton, I think, is up there too. He's living off one Super Bowl. He had Drew Brees, kind of like.
You do realize that Sean Payton was the darling coach for a period of time.
He's not anymore. He sucks.
I know. This is my point. This is my point.
He thinks that
this is the point.
He thinks like he is just like so much smarter than everyone else. Like him drafting Bo Nix that high when no one else was going to touch him. They probably could have gotten in the second round. And he's like, no, but Bo Nix is the savior. Like
They were drafting Bo Nix over Derek Carr on underdog. Look at the underdog ADP. It was a thing that happened. Bo Nix over Derek Carr with worse weapons. Okay, so here's the thing. This illustrates my point that I was making earlier about Gibbs versus Kamara perfectly. Perfectly. Okay? Is you're drafting Bo Nix in the hopes that one day he can be Derek Carr. Or you could just draft Derek Carr. Right? Okay, so now I have 10 burning questions for Tyler Knaeble. 10 burning questions for Tyler Knaeble, and we're going to get into it after this. DFS getting harder every year, but we're here to make it easier with the DFS Dominator, because I know a lot of optimizers keep coming out. Oh, our optimizer. What about this optimizer? But that optimizer. Well, we have a cash game optimizer that leverages the projections from Dario, Billy, the award-winning projections at playerprofiler.com, and builds the best lineups for cash games that have both upside and stability, because that's what you want. It's a couple clicks, boom, boom, boom. You get the best possible lineup for your cash games. But for tournaments, traditional optimizers don't work. That's why we have a Lineup Genius, which takes you through the process of building lineups the way they should be built. Which quarterbacks do you want to be overweight on? then building stacks, then setting run backs, then optimizing and generating up to 150 lineups that you can easily import into DraftKings, into FanDuel. That's the DFS Dominator. It's only $45 a year, not a week, a year. Just go to Player Profiler, click on the DFS Dominator from the menu, and you won't be sorry. We have a question in the chat before we get to the 10 burning questions. Maybe this is one of the 10 burning questions. Who knows? From a super chat, Taco in the super chat. He did the thing where he puts his whole lineup out there and he writes out his whole team. You don't need to do that. Okay? He was offered Jamar Chase for Kyron Williams and Chris Godwin. And my recommendation to Taco is you run to the podium with that one. And you run that one up to the podium quickly. You click accept before the guy can question it. Kyron Williams, he's a sell high candidate, right? Based on the fact he's been the least efficient running back in the league. Now this offense is not going to be as productive without their starting receivers. Are they going to be able to score? How are they going to sustain drives? Now they've seen Blake Corum for at least a half, basically manage and lead that backfield. I think it's Kyron's time as a productive starter in the NFL is waning.
Yeah, he's 16 plus touches in both games. He didn't not a single game with over 55 total yards in each game, but he's got a touchdown in each game. So it's like the thing where but he's not worth the third round price tag you were paying up for him. It's going to get worse, I think, before it gets better. Like he is their only guy, but the offense is going to be bad. So it's not.
He's not their only guy. Corum's better.
I just meant as an offense overall, but like Kopp and Puka are both out there. Entire O-line
he's all that's left of the starters. Okay, it's him and Higbee.
I saw a stat today. It was like PFF ranking the O-lines, and it was like no O-line is at a worse like pass protection grade. Like the worst one ever was like a 45 for like an entire O-line. Apparently the Rams are like 20 something for PFF like pass grade overall as like a unit. It is like their O-line has just been decimated by injuries. Like they're rolling out like probably like D2 guys who like they came in for like a camp visit for like the rookie stuff and like, oh, we need you back because we have nobody else to put there.
Cash out on Kyron in Dynasty, cash out in seasonal leagues, just cash out on Kyron, period. Who you got rest of season? Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields?
If you're telling me that Justin Fields is going to play the rest of the season, assuming obviously what this question is asking, I gotta give me the guy with the rushing upside, not the guy who's like, it's like Trevor Lawrence's career has just been like what ifs and buts. Like that's all it's been. It's like, right. Oh, like he can be so good. Like we know what he is. It's like, why has he not been good then? He hasn't been good in really any year he's played. He had one playoff comeback that like he's just like, if he doesn't have that playoff win, we probably talk about him like in a completely different way. But it's like he's got Kirk. He's got BTJ. Ingram, I know, is hurt, but he usually has him. He's got ETN. Like, the O-line's not terrible. It's like, why is it not working? This is one of the ones where, like, I was kind of, like, looking at, like, the play caller, but, like, I think it's just Trevor Lawrence. Like, at what point is it just on him? And I think right now it's on him. And it looks more the same of what we saw at the end of the year last year. I think I saw someone where, like, they played 10 games, their last 10 games. Their only win came against the Panthers. That's their only win in their last 10 games they played. And Trevor Lawrence a little hurt back half of last season. I don't care. At what point is he the problem? I think right now it's him.
It's eye roll. It's an absolute eye roll, and yet he's the one that got paid. So this is what's offensive to me, right? You try to call the league a meritocracy, and then you're going to pay Trevor Lawrence all this money, hundreds of millions of dollars, to be a franchise quarterback, and he doesn't deserve it. Hasn't done anything to deserve it, and Justin Fields gets kicked around the league, for late round picks. Doesn't make sense. I'd rather have Justin Fields. At least Justin Fields has upside, and he's also the guy I would want in fantasy football. Even though he's trapped on a truly anemic offense, and they are not allowing him to fully express his talents. Even in that scenario, he does have George Pickens, and he does have the ability to run. And he does have rush attempts. Right? He has 10-plus rush attempts this year already. So any one of those can go for a touchdown. He hasn't. His yards per carry will go up as the season goes along, and you'll start to get some spike weeks from Justin Fields from the quarterback position. Those are coming. I mean, look at last week. I mean, they played the Broncos. There was a 35-point total. I mean, what do you expect? There's going to be games where they have to go out and score, where they're going to be down double digits against the Bengals, against the Browns, against the Ravens, just in their division. These are some tougher defenses, but they're going to have to come back to score points against some of these better offenses around the league. They just haven't had to face them yet. Those games are coming. Justin Fields is a buy low. Trevor Lawrence is a sell low. He's a sell low candidate, and just the perfect illustration of a continued inefficiency in the decision-making of NFL front offices. With Evan Ingram hurt, I mean, getting hurt in warm-ups just devastating. The tight end position just ravaged, right? You have Evan Ingram, what are you going to do? Now you're out there, you're spending up. When I was doing my fab bidding, I'm like, what if I have Evan Ingram? I got to go in at least 10% on Hunter Henry. Just like I had to do the same thing last week if I had David Njoku and for Isaiah Likely. It's a hellscape at tight end. It really is. But who benefits? Brian Thomas. Brian Thomas this week. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is overrated, but that doesn't mean I'm not playing Brian Thomas. I think Brian Thomas is a must start this week.
Brian Thomas is just like supercharged Gabe Davis. And I mean it as a compliment because he is just like, you watch his like college highlights. He does not have like a single touchdown that's like under 40 or 50 yards. It is like, it's just bombs away for Brian Thomas Jr. And like, if you're like, you're in that league and like, you kind of already been decimated by injuries. Like, you're looking for like a big, like a guy who just put up like 20 like that, kind of like what you saw Marvin do for like 4 for 150 and 2 tuds. Like, Brian Thomas can definitely give you that. And like Lawrence has a good arm. Like he's not a bad quarterback. He just hasn't been good. That's the problem. So I like Brian Thomas this week. I'm in on that.
Would you drop Evan Ingram to pick up Hunter Henry so you don't have to hold a tight end on your bench?
I don't think so. Evan Ingram, you drafted him too high. It's a hamstring. It's not like it's like a structural, like, hamstrings can be tricky. I don't think he tore it. He just, tweaked it. I want more information on Ingram before I start dropping him for anybody else. I
can't drop him. He's too good. He's a major target commander, a big target earner. You have to keep him, but it hurts, man. Anytime I have to hold a tight end on my bench, it hurts. It hurts my soul. It really does. It really does. I mean, there's a question in the chat, Henry or Kincaid? Come on, man. Come on. Kincaid's a buy low, right?
Yeah, Kincaid is buy low. There's just no way where it's like, there's just no way Kincaid is like his production is solely based on the fact of Dawson Knox playing in games and playing in games he doesn't play in. Like, cause like that's kind of the book out on Kincaid. It's like, oh, the games you look at the splits where Dawson Knox plays and look at the splits where he doesn't. Like, I refuse to believe that. You don't trade up for a guy in the first round. He's like without a doubt the best pass catching weapon.
If you want Dawson Knox out there to block and to absorb the punishment and to occupy defensive ends and outside edge rushers so you can run routes. You want Dawson Knox out there so that Kincaid can be running the routes. God,
it's the same thing with Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers.
These fake correlation traps that get surfaced on social media. Sometimes they make my brain bleed. Because it's stupidity. It's like, what do you believe? Do you believe logic and how football works, or a correlation that someone surfaced from a spreadsheet? No, I'm going to go with how football works. I'm going to give you a bunch of guys, and I want you to confirm whether or not they are buy lows. These are people that I think are largely considered buy lows. And I want to see if you disagree.
Yeah.
Okay. DeAndre Swift.
Not a buy low.
Really?
No,
man. I don't even like DeAndre Swift, and I think he's a buy low.
I don't like him at all. What has he done to prove that he's a buy low?
He's 70% opportunity share.
But he's never been good. That's the problem. He's never been actually good at
He's not that good, but he does have the ability to be an RB1 in fantasy. He just has never realized that because he doesn't care about the sport. If they're going to feed him 70% opportunity share, I think this offense can only get better, and so I think he is a buy low. Brandon Ayuk.
Buy low, yes.
Buy low. Okay, so everyone knows that. See, this is the thing. If you have a unanimous buy low, you're not going to be able to buy him low. Okay, here's one. Here's one that is not unanimous. Rachaad White.
I would buy low on him, depending on what I would buy low on him.
Thank you. RC Fischer somewhere is nodding. I'll text him.
Bucky Irving, though, is involved. He is dead because I wrote up Bucky Irving. Hear me out, man. I wrote up Bucky Irving for the RB Risers article last week. That's on Player Profile right now. Week 2 just wrote up before the show. But Bucky Irving, so I was looking at the splits because one of the things with Rachaad White last year was that he just had so many carries, and it was a worse O-line last year. It's a much better O-line this year, but he was just getting all the carries. That's why he was so good. There was no other running back in there that was threatening to take touches away. Week 1, we saw Bucky Irving surpass 10-plus carries in his first game. All of last year, there was only one running back who had more than 10-plus carries in the game that wasn't Rachaad White. It was Chase Edmonds. I don't think it's a coincidence. It's the first week Bucky Irving gets some run. And, I don't think they just want to give Rachaad White, the entire, backfield again. I think Bucky Irving's going to be slightly involved. But I will say I still think Rachaad White is good. I think the O-line is going to make up for it. I think that if the offense is better, I think people just think people love to look at just yards per carry. They love yards per carry. I think it's just such a misleading stat. Look at what they're asked to do in the offense. I think there's more explosive opportunity for White to be used more like Pollard than to be used more like a Zeke in those Cowboy offenses where Zeke was just asked to bang his head for 3 yards a carry. That's kind of what Rachaad White was asked to do last year. But I think there's more room for Rachaad White to be an explosive playmaker in this offense. That's why he's a buy low.
I am absolutely fine with the role they've carved out for Bucky Irving because they're not throwing the ball to him. It's still going to be Rachaad White getting a touchdown or two against the Broncos. It's going to be Rachaad White the following week against the Eagles. He's going to command a ton of targets out of the backfield. He's going to have a huge reception total. It's going to be Rachaad White. This is your one buy low window on Rachaad White, and I'm happy to let Bucky Irving take some between the tackles carries, between the 20s. I don't even want to run him between the I'd rather run him outside. Either way, these are low-value opportunities. The high-value opportunities go to Rachaad White. He is absolutely a buy low. And I'm surprised that more people haven't circled Terry McLaurin as a buy low.
Terry McLaurin, when are we just going to get it? Can we just have it? Can we just have the season that we've been waiting for 5 years now? Can we just have it now?
Yes. Sometimes that season starts slow, and it ends up being a nuclear-level top 5 season in the second half. Just have faith. He's very good at football. Rachaad White, very good at football. Brandon Ayuk, very good at football. DeAndre Swift, not good at football, but the opportunity share is something that I can't deny. Dalton Kincaid, very good at football. Okay. Now, here's a buy low, a conventional buy low. Amari Cooper.
Man, I don't know if I want to be putting some stock into Sean right now. Judy's he's looked okay. Judy's looked fine. Joku's out though. Amari Cooper he's younger than you always think he is, but he feels like he's 32, but he's probably I think he's only 29 or 30.
He's 30. He's all 30.
30. Okay.
Yeah, he's 30 now.
I'm not.
He's looking kind of 30.
There's other receivers you can buy low on that I want more than Amari. I'm not buying low on Amari.
Yeah, I think of those 3 receivers we've talked about, Ayuk is the easiest one, but not going to be a guy you can attain at value. McLaurin and Cooper are going to be available in trade, and I would go McLaurin. Now, on the waiver wire, do you like Dameon Pierce? Do you like Cam Akers, Agumba Wale? You know, with this whole Mixon situation where he had the illegal tackle, the hip drop tackle, he's probably going to miss a couple games. That's my prediction. Even though he comes back, he plays on adrenaline. That thing is not going to be playable. So what are you doing? How do you think this whole backfield is going to shake out in Houston?
Well, Dameon Pierce didn't play last week because he had a hamstring injury. So it's like I think if I knew both guys were healthy, I think I'd pick slightly Dameon Pierce because I think he is. Cam Akers coming off two Achilles tears, and like he put the ball on the ground too on Sunday night as well. So like there's the fumble aspect of that. Of coaches
Cam Akers is not going to be. Here's the thing: he's not going to be a Texan at the end of the year. Like Cam Akers is not going to be employed by the Houston Texans in Week 17. He's just a fringe placeholder running back that is at the very end of all active rosters around the league. Dameon Pierce is actually a running back I think that teams still view as having some between the tackles value, Zach Moss level ability. I'm going for Dameon Pierce. I think it's a nice value on the waiver wire because he was hurt last week. You don't have to pay up for him the way if he was healthy and he got the opportunities that Cam Akers got last week, he'd be twice as expensive on the waiver wire. So I actually like putting bids down on Pierce this week. And then you've got Carson Steele versus Samaje Perine.
That one's not even close for me. It's Carson Steele. And Samaje Perine has not had a single carry as a Kansas City Chief. Not one. He had 0 carries through 2 weeks as a Kansas City Chief.
But that's not because he can't carry the football. That's because he's new to the playbook. He's just getting acclimated to the team. They're going to have a full week of practice.
But they're giving it to Carson Steele, they doubled down on him. So he comes in, he fumbles, actually loses a fumble in that game, and then they put him right back in there after Pacheco gets hurt. You would think okay, Ricky puts the ball on the ground, we're going to bring in Samaje Perine, vet guy, he understands the situation, we have to hold on to the ball here. That's not what they did. They put Carson Steele back in there when they were trying to grind the clock out at the end of that game after he'd already fumbled, and they're giving him short yardage stuff. They're like, hey, we still trust you. We believe in you. They got rid of Deneric Prince, who a lot of guys were happy, but they kept this guy on the roster. I think they really like Carson Steele, and I would much rather have him on my team than Perine. I'm not putting any bids in for Perine.
Stash Kamani Vidal. The best running game in the league, the best offensive line in the league is in Los Angeles. I was shocked that I had to come up with that on my own because I listen to other podcasts and I consume content, and a lot of times I can trace back a thought process to something that I read and then I don't know, I just said it on a podcast. I think it was the Decision Point. Can't remember exactly which show it was. And I realized that just came out of the sky to me. But then it was have you seen the roster? Have you seen this team? Of course you want to take chances on Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Of course these are some of the best values in the double-digit rounds, especially J.K. Dobbins, because if he is healthier than people think, if we just come into it knowing, hey, we're not doctors, but he's on the roster, and he was very explosive once upon a time. If he's been cleared, again, I'm not a doctor. If he's been cleared, then I have to draft him just based on the offensive line alone. So most of the credit's going to go to J.K. Dobbins, and he's back, and he's healthy, and, his doctors are amazing. It's the offensive line, bruh. That offensive line is absolutely devastating. Devastating. Joe Alt was a phenomenal pick. The Cardinals could have drafted Joe Alt, and they didn't. And that was a giant failure of scouting by the team. To pass on Joe Alt for Marvin Harrison, a black box prospect, was suboptimal. We'll just say that. We'll just say that wasn't the best thing to do. Kamani Vidal is an injury away from being an injury away. And on a team with the best offensive line, that's a guy I would stash in deep leagues.
Deep leagues, 100%. Yeah, I like how you put it. An injury away from being an injury away. So he's the RB3.
That's how I put him down on the Patreon stashes. You got to put him down. You got to have him on the list. You got to do it. Okay. I still think that Samaje Perine a value. I still think that Samaje Perine's a guy you're going to be able to afford. You're probably going to get outbid on Steal. Just be prepared. Someone's going to come in super aggressive on Steal this week. If you get Perine for peanuts, you'll be okay. And you'll be happy. He's going to get a bunch of catches. He's going to get carries. We'll see what happens. My favorite value streamer this week is Jalen Naylor. Easily. I think he will outscore Quentin Johnston, much to the chagrin of one John McGlynn.
Yeah, I agree. I had this written down. 100% bidding on Naylor. A touchdown in each of the first 2 weeks. Hughes just got, especially this week too. Hughes just got a tough matchup at Pitt. Like they've done a pretty good job at limiting those wide receivers. Granted, it was the Falcons, whatever's going on week 1, and then Denver. But Pittsburgh's defense looked really good. Naylor's got Houston at home. So you got to feel a little bit better about Naylor. JJ, it sounds like JJ is going to be fine, but maybe there's like some stuff. He gets free injured. I don't know. But Naylor is definitely
no. Addison is probably going to miss another game.
Yeah, Addison's probably that's what I'm saying. Addison's probably out too. So Naylor's wide receiver too, and Hawkinson's still out. Where it's like Naylor's looked good. It took him a year to get there, but it's like we were drafting him last year, and now it's like the Naylor year a little bit.
So who has been the most tilting player this year? Is it Braylon Allen?
I had Braylon Allen written down. The one I had was Alec Pierce, though. Alec Pierce is and not for me personally.
That's actually fair. I think that Alec Pierce has been more tilting than Braylon Allen because there was some expectation that Braylon Allen was going to do this.
Yeah, Braylon Allen was there's the first OTA report was Braylon Allen looks awesome, and it's you got the pictures coming out. He looked good in the preseason, and so it's you kind of had a sense Braylon Allen was getting drafted. Nobody was drafting Alec Pierce. Nobody. So if you're a Mitchell drafter or you're an MPJ drafter, it's what are you doing? Alec Pierce is the freaking wide receiver, whatever on the week. So it's just tough for those drafters. I'm not a big Michael Pittman guy, but those drafters, it's bad.
Amon-Ra St. Brown. It looks like he's not going to miss any time. He can play through high ankle sprains. He can play through almost anything. Now we see Rome Odunze playing through a sprained knee. This is impressive stuff, guys. You have to understand, I come from an era back in my day when wide receivers were the prima donnas of the NFL. Super fragile, all about the show and the talk. Now we're in a place where some of the toughest guys in the sport are at the wide receiver position. I think it's pretty amazing. I think that Rome Odunze, I now have a comp for him, which is a bigger, faster, stronger version of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That's pretty high praise right there.
He's going to be amazing. Odunze is going to be amazing. We're going to look back, and it's going to be Odunze and Neighbors. And Marvin Harrison will be, just an afterthought. 10 years from now, we're going to look back and oh my God, that was the Neighbors, Odunze, McConkey, Brian Thomas. It's going to be oh my God, what a class. Xavier Worthy. We're going to look back. It's going to be historic. And very few people mentioning Marvin Harrison.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how tough Odunze is as long as Waldron is his OC. I'll stand on that.
Oh God, why do you do this?
I gotta stand by what I believe in. It's not gonna happen while Waldron is there. There's always already the comps coming out. It's he destroyed. It's the JSN Odunze stuff where he's just using Odunze like he used JSN last year, which is awful for fantasy.
So it will be fair to say if he does overcome this handicap, that you will be beyond all in on Roma Dunze.
Oh, 100%. If he has
Okay.
like 1,000, somehow gets like 1,000 yards this season, I'm in. I'm all
Good.
in. I'm all in right now. Just like not in redraft right now. In Dynasty, all in.
So the guy that I want in DFS this week, tell me if I'm wrong, Chris Olave. In terms of nuclear upside, I think the last guy to get fed, the guy that's been waiting, the guy that's going to be the squeaky wheel, the Marvin Harrison squeaky wheel game of former Ohio State wide receivers in a dome, on the turf, in a potential shootout. Chris Olave, right? Chris Olave. Isn't that just who you're playing on DraftKings, who you're playing in DFS, period?
Yeah, and you could buy. It's probably one of those things where, like, in most leagues, like last week, Ayuk was like not getting drafted in a lot of those BRs and those DFS type stuff because Olave hasn't had like a first, good first 2 weeks where like he hasn't caught a touchdown. But like we said, he was like 1 yard short of getting a touchdown. And went to Kamara because that's just how some of this stuff works sometimes. But like Olave's right there. The offense looks great, so I'm definitely with you on Olave. My guy that I like this week is George Pickens. I think George Pickens has the opportunity to really have a good week. Fields, they obviously have some sort of rapport. I don't even think I've watched a game where it's like Justin Fields is throwing the ball to another wide receiver. Like, it is just George Pickens there. It's kind of like an AJ Brownish with Tennessee, the Arthur Smith stuff, where it's like they're going to run the ball, but like if they're going to throw the ball, it's going to be to Pickens. And like he had a deep one called back. That was a beautiful throw by Fields. They play the Chargers this week. I believe that game is
no. They play the Colts.
No, the Steelers do.
Oh no, they play the Colts next week.
Yeah, Colts next week. They're at home versus their first home game this week against the Chargers.
Yes. I'm looking out 2 weeks. You got Chargers and then you got Colts. You look ahead because if you're also thinking about this in terms of not just like DFS, but also for who you're trading for in a seasonal managed league, well, let's rank them. Olave, you're going to try to go out. So if you have a shopping list of receivers to go out and try to trade for right now, you're saying Pickens, number one. Then I'll say Olave. And then we said Brandon Ayuk, Terry McLaurin. Those would be the receivers to go out and just as homework for everyone in a managed league, go try to trade for those 4 receivers right now.
I like it. Yeah, it's a great for like the Ayuk stuff too, where it's like I think we were talking about him as a buy low because he's looked bad through 2 weeks. It's just like he wasn't there. He wasn't doing any of this stuff. He wasn't at camp. He wasn't doing any, he wasn't even in the building. Like you talked about, at least Jamar Chase was in the building, like at least with the team, still learning the offense. Like there's still tweaks. And you might know the scheme, but there's still tweaks and stuff that offenses are going to make in the offseason. So I think it's going to take him a couple weeks, maybe this 2 week period, but he should be good to go. Like it is just him. There's nobody else. McCaffrey's not there. Debo's out. Kittle's dealing with an injury. It's like that's why I had Juwan Jennings as a streamer option as well, where it's like Super Bowl. It would have been the Super Bowl MVP if they won it last year. So I think he's and they play the Rams. They play the Rams this week. The Niners do. We're like the Rams. We just saw them get torched by Kyler, who only had 4 incompletions, all of which were targeted for Marvin Harrison, by the way. And the Rams it has disaster class written all over it for the Rams, at least for the next month. Like you want anybody playing the Rams, that offense in DFS, in season long stuff, just target the Rams and the Panthers. You'll be good to go.
Yeah. I mean, again, Brandon Ayuk is not available, right? Everyone has seen the news. Everyone knows that there's no way people in this audience, the sophisticated people in this audience, play in leagues where you can buy low on Brandon Ayuk. It's not possible, right? And by the way, we also knew Debo was going to get hurt. Debo is the most injury-prone wide receiver in the league because he takes so many carries. For that reason alone, that's why in the Injury Finder app in the App Store, you're going to always see Debo in the top 3 of most likely to be injured wide receivers. And in this case, it wasn't like a shoulder or a wrist. Those are the kinds of injuries that if you're taking a lot of extra carries, you're susceptible to. This was just a straight up, calf strain, right? Juwan Jennings, he has to be rostered now, right?
Has to be.
Has to be rostered. You got to go. He's not exciting. Who would you play, Naylor or Jennings?
It's got to be Jennings. As much as I want to say Naylor, I think it has to be Jennings because we've seen him have good games before. They always said the Super Bowl was a perfect example of that. And it's just they don't have anyone else to give the ball to, especially if Kittle is out. It's Ayuk, it's Mason, and it's Jennings. So the other guys they got in that receiver room, it's like Bell, and then they got the rookie from Arizona. What's Cowing? He's on the team as well. So like I think Cowing is maybe kind of like a deep stash type of guy that I like. It's like this would have been the week for Pearsall if he was healthy. This would have been the week for Pearsall. Unfortunately, it's just we didn't get that. But yeah, I think Jennings. It's just because I think I feel better about Jennings getting 5 catches for 50 than I do about Naylor.
Oh yeah, you gotta go just based on the law of the conservation of targets. You've got to go Jennings, but I don't know. This is what happens to me.
Naylor.
This is one of my fatal flaws as a fantasy gamer is that I get like a dog with a bone with these exciting upside receivers like a Naylor, and I have a thesis. And even if a guy like Jennings pops available, like the news comes out, news drops, Debo's out, I'm slow to go get Jennings, and I'm still dug in on a Naylor because I want my take to also lead to me winning a fantasy matchup instead of just doing the right thing and banking the 12 fantasy points in a PPR league. That's what I should be doing. Because there's also touchdown equity there. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.
It's not just the guys. He's going to have as good a chance as anyone in the passing game in the red zone of catching a touchdown. He's a big receiver. That's the one thing. That's the one reason that he was drafted at all out of Tennessee was that Juwan Jennings is big. Now, we mentioned that the tight end landscape is just, it's a hellscape. Unless you have Brock Bowers, right? Brock Bowers, Dynasty tight end 1. You agree?
100%. Because who else are you putting there? It's like he's done this in 2 games. He's the number 1 tight end in fantasy right now. He is number 2 in He is number 2 in yards per team pass attempt. First in receptions, first in targets. He's number 5 in slot snaps too. It's like you were talking about that
yes.
Dawson Knox thing with Kincaid. It's the same thing with Michael Mayer and
but Michael Mayer, that's bad for Brock Bowers. No, it's not. Okay, we were first with Brock Bowers at tight end 1. Theo Greminger deserves the credit for that on our Dynasty rankings. Dynasty Deluxe, check it out. Who's your favorite tight end streamer this week?
I'm going to roll with my guy, Jonnu Smith or Mike Gesicki. Both of those guys I like. Jonnu just because I think it just – I don't think the Tua thing really affects him as much as it would affect a Waddle or a Tyreek, only because it's like Jonnu excels on – he's like a low ADOT guy, but it's like what can he do after the catch? So we saw some of that with on the Thursday night game. He had 6 for 53. So a decent stat line. Then you have Gesicki, 7 catches for 91 yards against Kansas City. And it's like if T. Higgins is still out this week, I think Gesicki's an intriguing play as well.
Who is the backup to George Kittle in San Francisco is my question.
Isn't it Ross? Or no, he's gone now. Charlie Warner's on the Falcons. I don't know who the backup is. I saw him on
His
TV.
name is Eric Subert. Eric Subert. Is Logan Thomas on that team?
No, I think he retired, didn't he?
Okay. All right. I think he had he might have had a cup of coffee there. Eric Subert is interesting. Eric Subert's on the team. I don't know what his snap share is going to be. Above average speed and burst. 250 pounds. 30 years old. Not anyone that you're going to get excited about, but those measurables are in line with a Jake Ferguson, and the case was similar with Jake Ferguson this year. Dalton Schultz. He's best comparable to Ed Dixon.
And they got the Rams
players that can have weeks.
They got the Rams this week too.
It's the Rams. So I'm going to go with Eric Subert this week. That's my guy. Defensive streamer.
Yeah, I got two. I have a couple. I like Chicago versus Indy. I don't think like Indy's offense just isn't. It's not. Look what Green Bay just did to him last week. Like Richardson's just not a guy who's like you're worried about like them dropping 40 on you, every week. I like, and I think Chicago's defense is good. We talked about that as well. I like Las Vegas. They're playing Carolina, so obviously you're gonna go Las Vegas at home against Carolina. I think it's a great matchup there. And then this defense probably isn't out there. Maybe it is. Sometimes there's weird stuff in these defensive leagues. Cleveland versus the Giants. If Cleveland is somehow out there, I would definitely grab Cleveland's defense.
Well, you mentioned the Packers, though. What about the Packers? They're facing Will Levis.
Yeah, I don't mind.
I would rather play the Packers than play the Bears because the Packers are facing, Will Levis, and this is going to be a low-scoring game. So you're at least going to bank some points probably from just the lack of scoring and yards, and then you have all the turnover potential. Packers are a great defense. Look what they just did to Indianapolis.
Look what Las Vegas just did to Baltimore, though. That's why I like Las Vegas. Like, if they can stop Lamar Jackson in that offense, they can stop freaking Andy Dalton.
No, that's true. That's true. And you have Max Crosby, one of the most disruptive edge rushers in NFL history. Mm-hmm. I guess you're right. I guess it's got to be Vegas. I would go Vegas. Okay, get us out of here. Bold prediction.
Bold prediction. We talked about him throughout the show. We talked about Waldron. He's no longer with Waldron. Jackson Smith and Jigba will finish as a top 15 wide receiver in 2024.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.